Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing, live show number 502. I am your host, Lauren Gray. Thank you so much for joining us at this time, which is the tail end of March. One more week of March, I should say. But anyways, we're in March Madness here in the United States, which is always fun in that sense because it is the unpredictability of it. But all said and done, love to get to today's topic. As usual, it comes from the idea of, by the way, different camera up here. I finally found my little webcam thing that I've had forever and a day. I know it's a little harsh light, but we're going to try it for now. You get to see more of the mess behind us as I keep moving stuff around in the office. We'll get that finally organized here soon, probably after our travels. But in the meanwhile, topic today, hospitality and agentics. It's a new phrase. Actually, if you're around playing with AI, you hear it a little bit more often. You hear comments in the news about agentics and so forth. Agentics is just a buzzword to describe the use of agents, which is a buzzword to describe the use of programmatic or programmed AI usage, artificial intelligence. Anyway, we're full of those kind of little acronymic and buzzwordy kind of combinations to it. We've been dealing with AI in our vernacular now for almost a year and a half. And we've all dabbled and played with it, whether it was forced upon us with Copilot, with Microsoft, or Siri's very snail-paced slow of rolling out AI, which it's getting into trouble for, or staying in trouble for. ChatGPT, Claude, things that you begin to find out names of other AI platforms. And you also begin to find out that there were other means of using AI. And then we started talking about what agents were. Agents were specific AI function tools. And as discussed on our podcast, there's just this floodgate of apps that are coming out that are really nothing more, and I say that not as a derogatory statement, but as just a statement of fact, that are nothing more than an AI agent doing a specific thing. And you buy it for that. Like, oh, wow, somebody's made something that if I wanted to figure out all my keywords, I can go over and have it do that. Now, we had software that used to do that before that algorithmically and machine learning wise would do the same processes. That was all about coding and so forth. And that's why I want to draw a little bit of a comparison to, for those that are knee deep, neck deep into what we do, Excel has been a part of our life for a very long time. As a means of making spreadsheets, how to create order out of chaos, although some of my Excel spreadsheets have been known to make chaos out of chaos. We learned to mentally and in very real form, organize our data into ways that was usable. It was called structured data. And that was definition, content related to the definition. You might think of them as columns and rows. Column of a property, row of a date, and then there was a number that was in there, maybe revenue or cost or whatever. And we built these charts out. And I remember very vividly as I began to learn more than the simplistic functionalities of formulas, where you can multiply, add, and divide. Okay, where you start getting into conditional statements and tabulations and pivot tables, and now they're even more mainstream as to the idea of how quickly they can be done for you. Pivot tables in particular. I remember making pivot tables was a revelation. Now it's a basic function. But that was our way for us to go and look at our data. I kind of equate the AI agents similar to our beginning usages of more and more advanced formula tools in Excel, because it allowed us to broaden our thinking as to what we could do with data. Again, early on, as with any math and learning math, you learn basic math and you get into algebra and calculus and all that stuff. More and more formula-based, massive usages of correlations of data, numbers, whatever. AI is doing that too. Now, I know there's been several famous statements out there. Zuckerberg says that we are going to be in a world of millions of AI agents. It's true to a certain degree. Let me explain why I think that helps with our discussion of hospitality and Agentics, which is the abbreviated form of encapsulating all the little agents that are going to run around, which are just some more specifically driven AI functions. That's what all agents are, specific AI driven functions. We see them in apps all the time, make me a song of, or change this picture to look like this. And it's already predetermined to be Disney or Monet or something like that. And it just does that function. Give me this picture and I'll make it look like a Monet picture. That's an AI agent. Just does that with the AI. It's built a prompt that defines exactly what it wants to do. All it needs is the source content that you're giving it, and it'll produce what it was made for. That's an AI agent. But going to the math and the correlation or the parallels of this, as we got better at using formulas, we got better at understanding our data. We started creating trends and means of interpreting data, and data could then be taken and have it function something in a formula and give us a derivative answer that we were looking for from that formula to make an actionable decision on. And we got pretty good with that to a certain degree, because you still needed to know what you wanted from it to begin how to build it. I want my data to tell me what my revenue is for the end of the month. Okay, so you know that you need to go find your sources of revenue. You need to bring them to a place that can be used, a sheet, a Google sheet, an Excel sheet, what have you, and you put it all there. And then in there, you create a formula that says, add all of these things together to give me my channel revenue. Add all these things together to give me my total revenue. Whatever the formula was that you have to get this answer, what your revenue was for the end of the month, you created the formulas to do that. Add these columns together, and you would identify the columns and put a little plus and put it together, and it'd give you a sum total. And yes, you got good at clicking buttons and so forth, but the idea was you knew what you needed from it, so you knew what data you needed to do it, and you knew what you needed to do with that data to get what you wanted as an answer. AI agents right now are new to concept to people because they're not looking at it in the terms of breaking it down into smaller pieces. They are still playing with AI in very broad, big questions, very shallow things like, tell me the best places to eat in Paris. Okay. What do you like to eat is not added. Where in relationship with it just has to be within Paris, so it could be anywhere in Paris. Price isn't related, so there's no value cost of it. If there's a great restaurant in Paris that's massively expensive, it's going to include in this list, so forth and so on. It's going to show you all the places in Paris. It doesn't tell you why they're been picked. Just you qualified as best. Best what? Best price, best location, best brulee. Guess what? There was no qualifier to this. So it's a very broad, blunted question, and you'll get results. And through that, you then traditionally go back to what you're normally used to, which is you will henpeck through the results to see what ones resonate with why you asked that question. And that's pretty much describing, I'd say, 90% of the people using AI right now. Simplistic questions. Funny little things. Write me an email back to my coworker from this email that sounds like I'm smart or something. And it'll write you something that you think is, oh, that sounds better than what I would have said it, and you click it. And the person is like, yeah, you didn't write that. And so we get better at using the way we ask stuff. Now we know that there's AI agents that will start doing things according to how we answer it. You'll expose them to all of your email answers or all your emails, and through its own agent prompting, it'll make a deterministic value of how you write in your replies. First person narrative, second person, or third person descriptive, whatever. And it'll begin to emulate some of the tonality of what you do for your emails. And you say, oh, that's really cool. That's an AI agent. You could take ChatGPT and without any AI agents, just say, hey, write me an email to a coworker that describes how happy I am with their project. And it'll write something really nice. And then you have other AI language models like Claude and so forth that have more of a twist on writing it differently for a different reason. And they all have their nuance to them because they all have this internal way that they approach data. And so people use it at that level, and that's all they do. Even the advertisements that display what it can be done for them, the Copilots, the Geminis, in ads that say, oh, talk about the weather, talk about this, tell me about this, or that. And they're all about single question narrative. They're not about progressive usage. So a lot of people say, well, I want AI to work for my business. I want AI to be more helpful for what I'm doing. So they then think about what they would want as a big answer. I want to know what to do about my paid campaigns if I give you all the current information and you tell me where I need to spend my money to improve my performance. If you just put that into an AI agent, it's going to try to answer it for you. But what it will do is give you, I wouldn't say generic, but mostly Captain Obvious conversation content about what you need to do to get to that answer. It won't actually give you the answer. It'll narrate what you need to do to get to that answer. You need to qualify your data origins. And then from the data origins, you need to put it into a location. And what it might do is, and what most people do with it now, is that gives them the spark of inspiration as to how to tackle a project. They may be sitting at the starting line with writer's block or formula freeze and not know how to tackle the project. Like, how am I going to narrate my data to give me the answer that I'm looking for? And the AI may break that block. That's a great value for it, but doesn't actually give you the solution. But for those people that want to create a very robust, multifunctional means of solution, it requires a more in-depth, progressive prompt, how you ask the question. Now, I've gone down this path and still find myself going down this path where I will have a concept of what I want, and I will begin to write a War and Peace novel, epic size prompt to describe every aspect of the nuance associated with the result that I'm asking for. And then I will spend an inordinate amount of time recultivating my prompt as I get the results from the prompt. So if I ask this big War and Peace question, it gives me an answer. Well, that's good, but I need this clarified, that added, this not really part of it, so forth. And so I create a modified prompt for it. And I'll end up doing 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12 progressive prompts until I've realized that I've painted myself into a corner, because now all of the variations that I've done are cumulative, single chat, continuing conversation in a prompt and an AI. And I realized that I've gone down the wrong path, or I focused on the wrong things, or was just not getting to where I wanted to go. What I've done is created for myself too large of a single solution. Not everything is solvable by one thing. In our real life, it's the same way. When our operations and within anything, revenue management, marketing, operations, and so forth, one thing doesn't solve everything, or one answer doesn't solve every question. A lot of times it's taking care of this, and the result from that taking care of means that now you take care of this, and the result from that taking care of means you take care of that. There's a progression of things. So what you then find is that you begin to make prompts that solve smaller things. And you make it in such a way that if you were to ask it again the same way, it'll solve it again the same way that you were happy with the first time. This is the nascent level of what an AI agent does. It's a single solution or simple solution, not always just a thing. It can be a series of things, but it's only for a particular solution that is done. So I want to go over and make an AI agent that knows where to go find my data, pull it into a certain location, and show a contrast between two sets of data. That's what I want it to do. It doesn't solve my ultimate why I'm doing this. It just solves a piece of why I'm doing this. It's a little bit like making a spreadsheet and making a formula with certain data sets. I always want you to take this data and compare it and give me the result over here. It's a simple formula function. You're asking the AI agent to keep it relative to the conversation to do the same thing. I want you to go out here. I want you to get this data, and I want you to put it here and compare this to that and give me an answer. Then over here, you take an AI agent and you say, hey, I want you to take the results from this other AI agent, and I want you to take the results from another AI agent that did another simple task. And I want you to put the two together, and I want you to do this with it, XYZ, whatever it is. And what you've done now is you've created an agent to do function 1, an agent to do function 2, and an agent to do something with both of those results in function 3. This is building AI agents to do things in a step-by-step puzzle process to get to a larger solution. This is what people have to learn to get into. This is what Agentics is creating single solutions. Now, here's the fun part. I made the analogy related to how we most relate to math formulas. Take this data, make the comparison, come to here. It's a formula. We do, technically speaking, the way I made the problem answered is Excel sheets. I have my revenue, I have my expenses. I want to put them on a single sheet. I want to tab those against each other, show my net of gross revenue, and I want to make that number go to this place over here. That's what we do with Excel sheets, Google Sheets, every formatting that we do, numbers and Apple, whatever. This is what we use those kind of platforms for. The cool part about AI is not just that they can lift the box and put it to another location. They can pack the box, ship the box, pick up the box, move the box, unpack the box, and put it in the proper location. They can do more than what you're asking. So the rub of it in Agentics is to advance what you're asking in a way that's more than what you're used to doing. It's not just saying, take this data and come up with a solution. It's saying, take this and tell me what's most important based on criteria that I've defined, value, volume, frequency, whatever, and take this data and find what's important based on whatever other variable criteria that I have, and put the two together and interpret how it influences this data, which was built from this. And it gives you an interpretive answer. This is the mindset of using Agentics in building your solutions. Now, let's put it into a real tone and context. We're in March of 2025. The world is, as always, revolving and spinning, and things change and things are changing. You can gloom and doom what's happening to marketing, or what's happening to our industry right now as to what will happen on demand and travel uncertainty and everything else like this. We've talked about this on the show for the past few weeks. Or you can say we're on the fringe of a boom and that this will explode domestic travel and that people are going to want escapism and travel and do things that will allow them to just do whatever purpose they have for it. Anyways, either scenario is going to influence what your business does. If it's a bust, you're going to be cost savings mode. You're going to have to do more with less. You're not going to have the cavalry over the hill to solve your own problems. You're not going to have the ability to increase bandwidth. You're not going to have the ability to spend out. You're going to have to figure out, for your own self-preservation of job security, a means of producing at or above the current level of value that you are, with lesser resources, or at least at best, the same resources. That's the boon. That's the bust part. The boon part is you're going to get more and more money in. And as we know very well, historically, over time, all the time, is that companies will stretch the maximization of their profit before investing monies to adjust for the ability to gain more money. And what I mean by this is they will run your butt ragged until they have to hire help for you. And the only time they're going to hire help for you or increase resources or spend more money with what you're needing to do is that you have to definitively show them that they're now losing money by doing that. Not because it's so hard to sell people on their potential of what money they could be making. They just see the money they're currently making. They like the margins. They like the numbers. So telling them that if they spend more, they could make more. That's nice. Some of them listen. Most of them don't. But when you start showing them because they're not spending money, they're actually losing money. When you change the narrative of that, then all of a sudden they pay attention to what you have to say and might invest more into the ability to make more money. If they can still justify that it would last as long as they would have to invest it for. Whole other conversations we've had on the show a few times. So either which way, you're going to have to understand how to become incredibly efficient with what you're doing, boon or bust, because either you're going to have to yield better because of lost revenue, or you have to yield better because of waiting for them to invest more anyway for more revenue. Using agents to help fix simple solution things, create insights of things, facilitate the doing of things, is the real next way of evolving how efficient and how productive you can be in marketing, which is our primary conversation, or in revenue management, or as in operations, whatever. It is influential on many levels for many departments. I'm going to focus only on the marketing aspect of it. Given the simple solutions of using AI agents for basically replacing your Excel functions that you've been doing, maybe you're fluent in it, maybe you're not fluent in it, what have you, is to begin to broaden the idea of genie in the bottle. What is it that I can try to improve that will buy me either more time or create more revenue? And usually the time one is the easier one to first tackle. Things that can help you with your scheduling, things that can help you with your email load, your mass communication types, your CRM engagements, and so forth. How can I create better efficiencies for this? The other is to provide value adds as to ability to generate more revenue. How can I use agents or create agents or find agents that are already built? Okay. And there is plenty of markets that have agents like this that have little snippets things. I made two different agents that are really fun. I did a web-based app that replaced a QR promotion functionality that I had for restaurants a long time ago. And I had another one that replaced an old wait list for restaurants that got swallowed by Open Table that you now pay an arm and a leg for, that you can do your own wait lists for free as a function of it. To make it. And it's amazing when you are clear in what you're asking the agents to create, how well they make these things. And certain agents or certain platforms do better with making programs and so forth. There's new ones out all the time, like Manus, which is scary because it's getting a lot of credit for its ability to create what it needs to answer what you're asking, program-wise and so forth. It's kind of like watching the Terminator rebuild itself. Spooky in that sense. It has its quirks and its issues and so forth, and it has, as with all of them, there is prone to some mistakes. Authenticity and truth always being the consistent issues that we always have to maintain. But the idea of agents and using agents in a way that is productive and helpful for what you need to create better efficiencies, or productive and helpful for creating better revenues. Using things that will help you with concierge level engagement. I have a beta on an AI voice agent. It's amazing how off script it can go and still be relevant because I fed it the right information it needs. It can handle so much of the level one conversations that your property gets, especially if you're a destination property, about what to go, where to do, what's happening, so forth and so on, because you can feed it events and weather and traffic and air flights and events again, and amenities in your property and so forth. And you have all of that relevant current data available for it to use. So if you get on this voice call with the agent, and I think I've talked about this now twice, but I always with this one, I always keep the rule of bots, the rules that I've made. 1, don't act human. 2, don't get in the way of a human. 3, always make a human available. Those 3 rules to me means that they're always impressed with how the AI agent works without feeling funny that they were duped, thinking they were talking to a real person. It's very fluent, very capable, multilingual, and it can handle simultaneous calls per minute, a minimum of 10, upwards of 100. Which means all of those calls that your front desk agent gets, usually poorly timed by somebody being already in front of them, or a line in front of them, or them in the middle of 2 other functions that they're doing, these calls can get handled. And if for any reason they get escalated where the person on the call needs or wants to talk to a human, at that point you've culled down 80-90% of the traffic, so that the ability for a guest agent to take care of the call is exceptionally high, because they know when the bat phone rings, that phone that comes through from that number, they know that they've already been prefaced with a lot of functionalities and so forth. So they're answering specific issues and things. This can be done in chatbots as well. Anyways, the AI agents are capable of beginning to infuse this kind of support and help. The ability for them to go over and create scheduling requests for your sales team, so they don't have to be near the phone every minute or in the middle of a conversation with one guest or potential guest, and another guest is calling about their potentiometer, and then now they have the conflict of prioritization. They can do a lot of preliminary sales calls, interruptions with this voice AI agent that can handle so much of the dialogue for them and push out links and data and SMS texting if that's what they need for certain things for the people they're asking to do. They can pull that data and send it to them. It's amazing what AI agents can do when you build them under the context of what you want them to do for you. And that's where the Agentics comes in, the multi-use of multiple small little robots, most agents. They each have a function. And as I build together this prescriptive modeling that I want to do, it's not one single agent. It's not one single prompt that I've made that's a War and Peace, as I mentioned, long, that's multi-filtered 10 times over to finally get to the answer. progressively. It's about saying, let's build something that does this really well, that produces what we want it to do. And let's build a bunch of them like that so they all produce better content that is now in a format or in a context that we want to define, that there's no other function for. There's no formula that creates it. There's no sheet that creates it. It's interpretive data usage that we put into these different AI agents. And now we want to have another AI agent use them. And what's unique is that it's not all one little and then cumulative. It's one little, lesser littles, eventually you to the one that is engaging, that creates the prescriptive, which we've talked about on our show before, which is telling you what you should do based on the current information, based on the criteria that you gave it. If you have a revenue goal and you have this prescriptive model that's working, it'll not just tell you, here's my report of what's going on, and it's up for me to interpret it, which is what we do now. But instead, it's like, here's what's going on right now. Here's what we see as important. Here's what we think why it's happening this way. And more importantly, and this is the tough model, what are the suggestions for doing things to recorrect for whatever deficiencies are created to still hit the goal that you told it you wanted to hit? That prescriptive modeling is a bunch of little AI agents doing certain tasks cumulatively up levels of engagements to the single prescriptive function that you've built it for. It also means they can get used for other stuff. It can get used for different yield numbers and different interpretations of data and different other agents that can tell it prescriptive answers to certain things that are very specific to channels or types of business or sources of business or whatever. But the tools are all there to plug and play now the combinations that make differences on what you want out of the agents to produce. If I've lost you in this dialogue, I apologize, because it's a lattice work of engagements. It's not, I get to go to a chat box and answer the single biggest question of my life. It's actually surprising when I do talk to, whether it be clients or on conferences, calls, and presentations that I do and so forth. When I ask the audience or any members of the conversation, what questions would you want answered about what's happening with you right now? It's like you're talking to a teenage kid about watching or dating. They're like, they get basic, like, where can I make more money? Okay, great. In what context? How much more money? When do you want to make this money? Is it all the time, or this particular month? You already feel good about other months? Is there actually more money to be made? How much money do you need? Because I can make you more money. Problem is, it might have cost you more to make it, the managed value of returns. So it's not a qualifying generalized statement. If you can get more specific about what you're wanting, it's more specific the answer that can be given. And that's where we run into the problems with how we handle AI right now, is that we're trying to think that if we can figure out the big question that gives us the magic answer, then we'll win the game. And it's not about getting the big answer. It's about building the pieces together that gives you the answer that you need. And each answer is relevant to the context of what you're asking it for and relevant to the priorities that you're placing on it then. The same question you asked a month ago may not be the same question you ask tomorrow. The same values that you thought you wanted are not going to be the same values that you have then. And I say this in context of when you think about budgets. You have a budget that was supposed to be for this month, which we can sell from now, okay? That back in August, when you first started conceiving this number, to now is way different, because what was happening August last year is different than what's happening in the reality of March now. So you may have had an aspirational number for this month that you're not going to hit. You may have had a number that you thought about in March that you've blown past because of circumstances that have changed that you didn't put into your model. So the idea is this: you build, with the usage of Agentics, a platform that allows you to adapt what you're asking from it. And that's the cool part of AI agents. If you create the multiplicities of the tools of AI agents to do certain tasks, their function may no longer be relevant, or you learn a better way that the function can be worked on. It's like always tweaking a tool and always being able to rebuild the motor to being newer, bigger, better as you need it. Because as you begin to understand how the data that you need needs to get used and how it gets used in the next level, you can constantly change how that construct is for what you want it to do. And the more you begin to broaden your thought processes as to what you can ask, going beyond the take this number compared to that number, give me a total and take that number elsewhere, Instead, interpretation, value, perception, sourcing. Like if you asked it to say, check every website for a destination and tell me what are the 5 best things to do for the month or the weekend of March 30th, it'll go fetch. But unless you give it good criteria to what you're asking are the things to do, it might tell you about the knitting class that's at some assisted living facility because it's on an event calendar that it wasn't found. Clarity of definition of request is paramount to functionality of agents being used properly. The clearer you are on the function and the resultant that you want from it, and the testing of that to ensure that you're not creating corruptible data or irrelevant data, it's not corruptible, but irrelevant data, the better the tool AI agent works. And then the more you can rely on it as you plug it in with other things. So in the instance of that voice AI agent, one of the functionalities of it is that before it answers the call, it calls the phone number for it, it goes and pings a source for events and for the destination, a source for the weather for the destination, a source for flights for the destination, a source for traffic for the destination, okay? And the property's current events that's going on with it, so that when it answers the phone and you go off script saying, well, I was thinking about coming March 30th for a couple of days with my family, what's there to do? It already knows the sourcing of it, looks at it, knows what's there, sees what may or may not be relevant to a family of 4, and then comes back with a couple of ideas. And you say, well, that's a lot of agent writing. It's not. It's actually very much about tone, sentiment, and value. You identify the criteria of if this gets mentioned, then you want to include it. If it doesn't get mentioned, then just refer to general. It's very much about just thinking through the process of what could happen and making adjustments for what does happen, and then going back and testing it. Literally trying to spoof it. When I sent it to my friends and business coworkers to test, I purposely asked them to see if you can break it. Ask the silly questions that you wouldn't normally ask a real person. Ask questions there and see if it goes back to topic. See if it does give you something that's useful. And that's the real litmus test of things like that, is that it functions the way you want it to function. Well, giving it the sourcing of the data means that it has an answer. If you ask for the weather in Mongolia, it may not know it. It could probably go answer it if I allowed it to go outside the constraints of the data that I've assigned it to. But I didn't. But if you ask about the weather of the location that I did give it access to, it'll give you the answer. That understanding of how those kind of things works is the fundamental basics of building agents that are multiple usages that can be combined. That's the Agentics aspect of that for hospitality. So think not about the big ultimate question you can ask to get an answer for, because I can honestly tell you, nobody really has that question. They don't know what they would ultimately want to ask. It's kind of like when you over and ask people, especially C-level or executive teams, so what do you want out of this project? Make more money? Okay. My work here is done because I'll make you more money. Problem is, you're probably going to spend more money doing it than you probably wanted to just because you made such a loose criteria. Define more money. What's the acceptable return on investment? Bottom. And I'll tell you the top, because the top means that if you're getting that kind of ROI, you have too much demand for what you're producing. You need to make it more of a larger audience and reduce the ROI. There's a sweet spot of ROI that you want to run in most all of your campaigns. Bragging about a 50 to 1 is showing poor account management. So if you ever want that discussion, we'll bring it up in another show. I believe we've touched on the points I wanted to touch on in relationship to hospitality and Agentics. It's exciting. It's fun. It's amazing when you're getting into it as to what it can do. The surprises that comes from it is really quite spectacular. The functionality of it, of course, is showing that it can do what you built it to do. That comes from proper testing and a listening ear that people are looking to do, not out of the novelty of doing it, but out of the value that it can present itself. And that in itself is its own discussion with people. So thank you. Always thank you for watching us on our TV channel, the Hospitality Channel, which you can find on your Google TV, Apple TV, Amazon TV, Roku TV, any smart TV. Just look for the Hospitality Channel. The show is always on the free side of the gateway. If you want to join our peer level professional group of hospitality marketers, go to the hospitalitymarketing.club. Thank you so much for watching us on our simulcasts on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch. We're on all those platforms as well. And of course, always thank you for listening to our podcast where we go through a lot of the tools. Our radio station, hospitalityradio.com. We try to be omnipresent in those. I mean, we're broadcasting in 209 countries with our TV channel. So it's good to know we translate in 11 languages, the largest volume of traffic origins. We broadcast and we translate them into the 11 languages. So that makes it even more comfortable and easier. We also recast this show at 11:30 a.m. Wednesday mornings, Sydney, Australian time for our APAC friends, and 11:30 a.m. London for our EU friends and Mideast friends on Wednesdays. So if you haven't caught us then live, which I do know that there are several around the world that do watch us live, and I do so sincerely appreciate for that to be there. If you have any feedback, always answer every email to me, Lauren@hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com. If you want to do an audio version, I always keep a weekly question up for people to answer or have comment on outside of what they may want to share with me. And that is at hdm.news/talkback. You can get back to me then as well. So with that, my name is Lauren Gray. I thank you for the privilege of your time and look forward to talking to you all next week.